Hello everyone, I'm Aslam Kunhi Mohamed from IIT Madras. Today I'll be talking about understanding cementitious systems at the atomic level. To bring context to the talk, so in today's world, we have most of the constructions made out of concrete, which is the most used material in the world. And if you look at its microstructure under an SEM, you can see a denser structure with multiple phases in it. And if you zoom in further and look at a higher magnification, you can see this is an halide grain with nano structures of CSH around it. And if you further magnify and look at the structure of CSH, you will see the atomic level structure of CSH. And today's talk, we are concentrating on at this scale, where we'll try to understand the cementitious systems at that scale. So in order to understand materials at the atomic scale, along with experimental techniques, people often use computational approaches such as density functional theory based calculations, DFT-MD, molecular dynamics, and classical molecular dynamics. So I won't be going through this the techniques involved in these different approaches, but rather discussing on how these techniques were applied by several researchers and myself to understand better the cementitious systems and the different phenomena that is happening at this atomic level. So for those interested in learning more, there are several papers published in this special issue on atomistic simulations and applications in cement and related building materials in CCR Cement and Concrete Research Journal in 2022. So from an atomistic perspective, so we have this Portland cement with these four phases, and halide being the main phase, which reacts with water to form CSH and CH. So you have this crystalline tricalcium silicate, which reacts with water, crystalline structure reacting with water to form this Portlandite, which is also crystalline, and then you have a nanocrystalline CSH being formed. Now, so upon continuous hydration, here all these with other phases will start to form different these hydrates and fill the microstructure to form this hard dense material, which enable us to make the built world that we see today. However, as we know, concrete is associated with about 5 to 8% of world carbon dioxide emission due to its high usage of the volume, the significant volume that we are using. In order to make, so there is an urgent requirement to make concrete and building material as such more sustainable and lower its carbon footprint. Although we have been using Portland cement for over 200 years, we still don't know, we still not fully understand the different phenomena and mechanisms happening in the cement hydration reaction. And most of these reactions might be happening, or some of the mechanisms will be dictated at the atomic level. And in this context, this talk or atomistic simulations and methods applied to cement hydration is quite relevant. So cement hydration, we can break it down into different topics or areas. First, we have so we'll look at different researchers or the relevant information at all these different areas. So first we have the cement phases, which is unhydrated, so C3S, C3A, or in blended cements you have calcine clay, metakaolin, and so on, calcine clay and so on. Then once you mix it with water, you form an interface, a solid liquid interface, where it starts to dissolve. So this is we will also look at this interface, which will be where different phenomena, mechanisms of certain adsorption as well as dissolution will happen. And then once the different ions in the cement phases start to dissolve, it forms, this will start to interact in the solution and then starts to form complexes and clusters, and then ultimately, depending on the superstructure and so on, precipitate to form the hydrates either at the interface or in solution. And this is how the microstructure will form with the cement hydration. So now we will look at each of these four different areas. So first, the cement phases. So Atomistic simulations, people have used classical MD to look at the mechanical properties and so thermal properties of different polymorphs and phases of cement, anhydrous cement phases. And from the DFT calculations, people have also tried to calculate the reactivity of different oxygen sites and so on, and how cationic substitutions and others or some defects that can actually uh, uh, modify the reactivity of certain sites have also been studied. And more, although these bulk properties are quite interesting, much of the phenomena in cement hydration probably is dictated what happens at the surfaces or how it's connected to the bulk and so on. And as such, we will just now go to the interfaces where you have the, so here I have shown an example of a C3S slab where you have the bulk-like properties here. So this is how you kind of represent how in a simulation the interaction between a solid and a liquid happens, and this is the interface, and then you have the water. So here you can see certain calcium ions are already in the solution. That is because I have assumed I have hydroxylated the surface, or assumed according to one of the papers from Ratan Mishra, how to simulate the pH conditions. And but a more accurate or most of the times people only look at the water dynamics or how the ions, if there are any additional ions that you put in the solution, distribute its a distribution with time. And another method is to use reactive force fields, which are reactive force fields which enable bond making and formation, which means essentially if instead of hydroxylating, the water molecules will automatically come and then will break into hydroxides, and the hydrogen can go into either the oxygen of the silicates or just the oxide ions for instance in C3S. This was done previously by Manzano around 12 years back, and a recent publication where they have looked at how the calcium coordination and its ligand around it, so whether oxygen from the hydroxyl or water or oxygen from the silicates, how it's changing when it starts to dissolve. And this was done using ReactFF for several nanoseconds. Now, the people have also used DFT, where you can look at single water molecule adsorption on C3S surface, and also recently some papers have come out where people have looked at how the calcium, similar to the work that I described in the previous slide, how the coordination of calcium, the ligands, change upon dissolution. So here they have used metadynamics, which is an enhanced sampling technique. So it will just accelerate certain rare events, or it will, against a coordination collective variable. So here is the coordination of calcium with water and calcium with the oxygen of the silicates. So you bias a simulation along this by giving certain energies, packets of energies along the simulation to push the system to sample configurations that it normally wouldn't go. And from what you actually put in the energy, you can back calculate how much you have put in the energy when it explores this different configurations. From that, you'll be able to calculate the free energy surface of the system. And so this they have applied on C3S, where they have looked at one calcium being dissolved, and similar calculations was also done on a C3A structure, where the calcium is again coming out of the surface. So although these simulations are quite interesting, it's difficult to draw parallels to the actual dissolution that's happening in for the cement phases. Of course, these are well constructed, pure defect-free surfaces. Of course, some people have also considered defects, but not to the extent that you have it in real system. But from this is where we are at. I mean, and hopefully with more and more computational power, we'll be able to explore more and do something more realistic, but not necessarily we don't have to do something more exactly comparable to the experiments, but more of asking the right questions to exactly see the insights that we think might or could happen, and that is more interesting to some extent. And now we come to the solution. So now the ions are already in the solution. Now we have several different phases that will dissolve, and it uh, it interacts with each other. So people have looked at whether when this is actually in the solution, so you can only look at the solution where you have these ions and if they like to form complexes or not. So here is calcium, CaOH and COH. Here is aluminum and silicon. So we can see certain complexes can form, and then there is a recent work in which they have used such formation of complexes to explore whether that will eventually form a CSH like structure. So this idea is quite nice in the sense we will with experiments it will be difficult to explore how certain, like when it comes into solution, ultimately it precipitates into a crystalline or say a nanocrystalline structure. So with these computational tools we can actually try to simulate such phenomena with quite good physics behind it. Now so now we have it in solution. Now it is people have also looked at the hydrate phases, especially CSH, which has been a topic of study for several decades, simply because its structure is quite complicated. So and it has multi-scale features, we call it. So you have at the microstructural level, you have the outer CSH and the inner CSH, which can have different morphologies like foils or needle-like and so on. And then at the gel level, it can have it can be associated with the gel pore, which is shown here in this Feldman-Serrada model. Although so far no one has really been able to give a picture or a representative where exactly is the gel pore is still not known, and so on. And then these are the taubomer-like sheets, and then you have the interlayer between them, and these sheets are separated by this some kind of gel spaces that which is 2 to 5 nanometer. And when you go a bit more into the structure or zoom in further, and then you have these individual lines or sheets which are made out of calcium silicate sheets, which is known to be taubomerite-like, which is a naturally occurring mineral. And the difficulty with CSH it is because it doesn't have a fixed stoichiometry, and its calcium silicon ratio and water content varies. And although so we have worked on it, me along with during my PhD as well. Although we are not the first ones to propose a model for CSH, only there are probably two prominent models along with ours who have tried to make CSH atomistic models from defective taubomerite crystal structure. Excuse me. So 14 angstrom taubomerite is a naturally occurring mineral. So here is a supercell of the crystalline structure of 14 angstrom taubomerite, and in the dashed line you see a primitive cell where you can see this infinite silicate chain, calcium silicate structure, where it is separated by this interlayer space here. And you have two types of silicates here. One is the bridging one, and this is the pairing one. The bridging one is the one which is protruding to the white space. You have the calcium in the interlayer space and some water molecules. Now, how do you go from taubomerite structure, which has a calcium silicon ratio of 0.83, to CSH, which typically has a calcium silicon ratio of 1.7? So what I have shown here has a calcium silicon ratio of 0.72. Now I create some defects in it by removing silicate bridging tetrahedra and add 2 protons to charge balance. And here, instead of charge balancing, I add a calcium. Instead of protons, I add a calcium to charge balance. Now I increase the calcium silicon ratio to 1. In doing doing this, I create a new type of silicate tetrahedra, which we call the terminal silicate tetrahedra. So earlier in NMR terminology, a silicate which is connected to two other silicate is called named a Q2 species. So here you have the Q2 bridging set and pairing set, and now you have a Q1, which is silicate which is connected to one other silicate. And then you can further increase the calcium silicon ratio by having additional calcium and hydroxyl in the interlayer. So effectively what what people have said is CSS structure is can be represented by a defective stoichiometrite. But how do you make all these defects without actually making up some how do you randomly make these defects? This was a challenge, and although the models before we proposed were not able to or fully not able to capture the intricate details that normally people were able to observe in experiments. So with that, we proposed this brick model where we were able to precisely define the location and the type of defects in a topomerite structure. So using a notation, using a string of characters like this, where individual characters represent certain chemical units within a brick, we call this as a brick. And with a code, we can actually generate different types of defects, and we can assign different positions for these defects in one brick. And this bricks can be then made can be stacked together in XYZ directions, and then essentially we can make supercells, bulk, and also surfaces, which means we can create a three-dimensional structure where we exactly know where the different types of defects are. So this with this we were quite successful, and recently we also published a paper, I think it is just now in review or just accepted, where we have a Python code to generate easily these many number of structures within fraction of seconds. So using a combination of so since we were able to have this brick model, as well as we were able to with collaborators, we were able to synthesize high calcium silicon ratio CSH. Using experimental and the simulation techniques, we were able to explore the different intricate features within the CSH. So here is an example where the dynamic nuclear polarization NMR showed us that close to a Q1, that is a terminal silicate, there is a significantly stronger hydrogen bonding environment. So using a DFT brick model, we created different structures and looked at what type of defect can be here such that we can have this strong hydrogen bonding environment. When we found out that only those structures with the calcium at this bridging site connecting these two oxygens were able to produce this strong hydrogen environments, strong hydrogen bonded environments around it using DFT calculations. And with this indirectly, we were able to prove that there is this bridging calcium which holds the silicate chains together, and it's a feature that is there in all high calcium silicon ratio CSH. And with this insight and this combination of experiments and computational techniques, we further explored the incorporation of aluminum, especially in sustainable cements. We have more of aluminum in it with clays. So it is believed that aluminum in six-fold coordination cannot exist. It was believed that aluminum in six-fold coordination cannot exist in CSH. So we reanalyzed this by using the DFT, the brick model, and calculating the energies using DFT. And we realized that for the same stoichiometry, aluminum in six-fold coordination is much more stable than aluminum in four-fold coordination for a calcium silicon ratio of around 1.75. So this was interesting, and then and contrary to what people have believed so far, and then we also did experiments as well as tried to look at different defect types and so on, and then we were able to prove that the aluminum in 4, 5, or 6-fold coordination can exist at the bridging site similar to that calcium, and you don't need to invoke a different phase which is called the third aluminate hydrate to explain this 6-fold coordinated aluminum in CSH. Similarly, we were able to also locate the different sites when zinc is incorporated also in CSH recently, and which was also experimentally done. Also, experiments were carried out with the DNP-NMR also to locate the sites. Another calcium sites we also looked at from this brick model was something we called calcium at the pairing site, which is just below this dimer, which we have predicted using atomistic simulation so far, but haven't yet been able to validate with experiments because calcium NMR is something which is very difficult to do. So just to illustrate how good when the atomistic simulations and the brick and the understanding of the structures that enables us to really understand or even get more insights into the structure. And with these understanding, we were able to propose how the CSH, which has different pore structure based on because as I have described earlier, having all these features, different multi-scale features. So the transport of ions, which causes the durability issues, chloride transportation, and so on, depends on how these ions are transported through the pore channels, where CSH might be the surfaces close to it. So often, this is often studied using molecular dynamics, but most of the time people assume a topomerite like topomerite 14 angstrom topomerite surface 001 surface, or just randomly create some defects on the surface and so on. So with this good understanding about the bulk the features in the bulk structure of CSH, we were able to now try to make a surface to look at what are the different terminations that the surface can have. So this was a work done at EPFL by Zika Kasar, and we realized that predominantly for high calcium silicon ratio CSH, the CSH will have mostly calcium terminated CHS surface. So this is also published recently, and then there's a good discussion for people who wants to have a look at in depth. So now this is an advantage since we can now have a look at different phenomena at a much more accurate simulations. Now we come to a different element in this whole thing, chemical admixtures. So chemical admixtures are termed as spices of concrete, which includes organic and inorganic compounds which are used in very small amounts to bring about certain tailored properties that we need for our concrete, to flow it better, or to retard, or to water reducers, accelerators, or so on. So here is a depiction where PC polymer polycarboxylate ether based superplasticizer can actually retard the cement hydrations significantly, also letting the flow properties, improving the flow properties as well. So how these admixtures which interact with the cement hydration, how exactly it bring about this admixing capability or these properties that we require, it's still not fully understood. As such, we can suggest that, or we can predict that whatever polymer or organic compounds that we add, it will either interact with the solution species, and together with that, or so it can also interact with the interfaces, either with the cement or the hydrates, and through this it can bring about the required properties that we may have. And this can also be modeled using and looked upon easily using atomistic level simulations. So here is a polycarboxylate ether based superplasticizer. It's a chemical notation. You're having P number of side chain length. P is a side chain length. Capital N is the number of monomeric units in one segment, and small n is the number of that monomeric segments. And with this, you can create different molecular architectures of PCEs. And often, just to give an example, people have looked at different types of PCE adsorption on 14 angstrom top bomb, right? This goes back to what I said earlier, that people don't use the real CSS surface because people still don't have an understanding on what will be the realistic or representative features on the CSS surface. So they were able to use tiered MD to push the polymer onto the surface and see what is the free energy of adsorption. Often the difficulties involved with this organic inorganic calculations is to get the force field parameters, especially when it is, because for this size of polymers we would need a classical MD to do, or React FF might also work, but no one has done as far as I know so far, or probably there are few. And recently in the special issue there is also a review paper in which we have also discussed a few papers who have done simulations on chemical admixtures. So just to give a few examples of what I have worked on. So here was from the experimental side, my collaborators found that retardation of cement hydration was higher at higher temperature by PCE. So here you can see the retardation at 70 degrees Celsius significantly higher compared to at 23 degrees Celsius. And they also found out that at 23 degrees Celsius it forms a nano-sized polymer, some aggregate is also found in DLS measurement, and this led to them to hypothesize that maybe there is a nano-sized polymer aluminum aggregates with other experiments as well. So in order to confirm such a hypothesis, we put two polymers of two PCEs in a simulation box and tried to look at whether it would like to actually come together and form an aggregate in the presence of aluminum. What we have found is actually the two PCEs form an inter PCE bonds through an calcium aluminum calcium bridge. And we looked also at the enthalpy of these formation of these bridges and found that at 23 degrees Celsius the more the number of this inter-PCE bonds is much more favorable, which means like it really likes to form these nano aggregates. At higher temperature it doesn't really like to form these aggregates, which means that it's available for to adsorb on the C3S or CSH phases, as that to hinder further cause more retardation at higher temperature. And with this was an example where we could actually get or prove what a hypothesis or an insight that we want to develop using atomistic simulations, which is not otherwise accessible with experimental approaches. So we get to understand certain phenomena at the atomic level better this way. So just to give an example of PCEs as well, you can also use metadynamics calculation to look at the radius of gyration and other experimental parameters around, which can also be calculated from analytical expression to validate what are the different types or how the PCEs behave when in solution or close to the surfaces. To summarize and conclude, so a combination of computational and experimental approach is always quite interesting, especially now we want a very fundamental understanding at the atomic level, and CSH as such better surfaces are needed to really simulate the post structure and transport of ions. Here I haven't talked about many simulations who have already done that, so it's there in the literature. And defects and the impure samples always make it difficult to compare with experiments. So always people often try to compare it directly, which is not always true and necessarily correct. And what with these simulations and what we want to gain with these simulations is to understand these systems at the atomic level, look for specific interactions and how these might affect the hydration mechanisms and so on. And with that knowledge at the atomic scale, we can develop more sustainable and better cementitious systems. And so there is more scope to understand all these systems, whether it is new types of binders and so on, and so that we can gain knowledge at this level to better design futuristic cement. So as Feynman's famous quote, there's plenty of room at the bottom, so there is plenty of scope for cementitious scientists to work on atomistic modeling to and understand these materials at the atomic level. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention, and thank you for watching this. And of course, I have done this all with the help of several collaborators who are listed here and the funding agencies and so on. Thank you very much.